Joining me now from Dallas, Texas, representing District 1 in the Lone Star State, Congressman Louie Gohmert. Hi, Congressman. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be with you, as always. Thank you.
Of course. So it looks like law enforcement in Texas is heading toward implementing some policy changes regarding law enforcement. Now, recently, the agency in your state that regulates police has agreed to add implicit bias training to a course required for every officer. Houston Democratic State Representative Garnet Coleman is leading this charge. Do you think that's happening in your state? Does it act as a model for what should be happening in others? Would you prefer to see a federalized approach?
Well, when you're trying to placate rioters and looters and massive protests, you're playing right into their hands because you can never concede enough. We need fair, unbiased police officers, but I would humbly submit, since the huge majority of police officers, of law enforcement, are not racist, but they know who is. And we know that in the past it's been the police unions, although they defend some upstanding whistleblowers, they also defend the bad cops, and they get them reinstated when they finally get fired. So we have got to deal with a policy. It's not, to me, it's not so much about training, it's about getting rid of bad cops. And there aren't that many. We just need cooperation of the police unions to do that.
And you were present during that recent House Judiciary Committee hearing on policing and law enforcement accountability. George Floyd's brother, he was one of the witnesses that testified. We've heard from the family say they want justice and they feel that Mr. Floyd is the catalyst to some major change in this country. Now, regarding law enforcement and how police officers interact with their respective communities, where do you think Democrats and Republicans could find some common ground on a bill that actually stands a chance of passing?
Well, they'll be able to pass whatever they want to in the House because they have the majority. But as far as finding common ground, in order to do that, you have to have a majority party that wants to find common ground. And we reached out to them on judiciary. They didn't want our input. They don't need our input. They don't want our votes even unless we do exactly what they tell them. So there is no outreach from Democrats. There is no effort by them to find common ground. They're wanting to shove something down our throats to placate the far left because some of them are facing tough liberal primaries.
It looks like it's another battle brewing in Congress, but as I've mentioned before, these are some very emotional times for people on both sides of this debate. What's your message to your constituents that are looking to leadership for some guidance on how to carry on with their lives and feel safe, feel reassured that things are going to get back to normal?
Well, in order for that to happen, people have got to use common sense, and that is never associated with looting and defacing and vandalizing and rioting. And so there are some disturbances in East Texas where I represent, but there is so much common sense in East Texas. They know the solution is not to go out and destroy or ruin, it's to work together. And so I think we've just got to see more of that. And also keep in mind the movement that should have arisen out of George Floyd's death is what the Floyd family hoped, and that is some changes so that we can get rid of bad cops. But it got hijacked by Bolsheviks, basically, they had organized, they were ready, they needed a spark, and they have overtaken what should have been a very peaceful George Floyd effort to fix the system that allows bad cops to remain. So we have got to recognize the Bolsheviks for what they are. They are not helpful in any way. They're not looking for common ground, and anything you concede to them, they will demand more and more, even to the extent of demanding you lie down prostrate and bow to them like they are your gods. And some of us won't be bowing down voluntarily to anybody but Almighty God. And that's where our hope lies. Like Chuck Colson said, our hope won't arrive on Air Force One. Our hope is in Jesus. So Christians believe that, and we've got to not lose sight of that.
Well, and Congressman, lastly, I know you're on a time crunch, and I
Yeah.
appreciate your time, but I'm going to squeeze in one last question before I let you
Sure.
go. You're going to be with President Trump all day today. You're in Texas. He's with you there. What is the goal of this trip? Are you helping advise him currently on what he's tackling today? What's your role?
Well, he is seeking advice. And I love that about President Trump. You know, yes, he's active on Twitter, but he's also constantly listening. He's constantly bringing people that have differing views because, a bit like Lincoln, he wants to hear from opposing views and take those into consideration. So, this is an outreach by the president. He wants to gather, which is what good decision makers do, gather in information, hear different perspectives, and then when you have all the evidence, make the decision. So it's really more outreach for him.
All right, Congressman Louie Gohmert of Texas speaking with us today.
Thanks
Thank you so much
much
for your time.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you.